Beautiful.
And when do we start? It says
we should be live now. It's saying live. G'day, everyone. Popping in for our usual Behind the Photos show. Obviously, it's on Aaron's channel today.
Yep, and as I speak, we're not automatically switching, David.
Yeah, that's why I said. I wondered whether it wasn't switching.
Uh-oh. No, it's not switching. If I watch this over here, I'm going to get all messed up. Let me detach that pop-out chat thing. And that way I can bring this over here.
We're still trying to work this out, guys, so that we're still in teething parts at the moment. We'll get this right eventually. Let me just bring up your page. I just want to see what it's showing on the live.
Yeah, so here's the control room, and for some reason, I guess we're joining. Yeah, you're just not.
Well, it came up on me, Aaron, so it may be switching on YouTube Live.
It started switching now, so that's good.
Oh, so it is switching, is it?
Everything's working. Hey, also, how do we sound? How do we look? Let us know, please, because
grab out the chat.
I got to figure out this.
Drag that down there. Yep, looks like it's all going. So like I said, I think this is going to be the better way of doing the show. Once we work out the nitty-gritties of what's going on, it seems to be that this works a lot better in the fact that it does switch on its own. You're going to have to excuse me if I'm coughing today. I have developed I don't know what it is. I went to the doctor and they've put me on some antibiotics, so hopefully it'll clear up in a few days. So if I do cough during the show, please excuse me. But I'm still looking forward to doing the show. We didn't want to miss another one because last week, obviously, we had a couple of issues. I think Aaron was out working or something, so I ended up doing that on my own. So we do want to keep this as a weekly show. Today, we had to do it a day earlier because I'm actually doing a shoot tomorrow. So I didn't want to miss. That's why I thought we could probably do the show today.
Yep, and what I have to get used to is not talk when you're talking unless it switches, so that's going to be a little bit getting used to, but I think it's going to work out better this way. The only thing we don't have the cool graphics and all that stuff. It does allow you to do like an overlay, but I don't know what the overlay is. I'm sure it's just something static. So we'll have to work that out. But anywho, also says we sound good, so that's good, and I think everything's working. Next time I have to remember to use, what was that? Internet Explorer and not Internet whatever.
Yeah, Chrome, Google Chrome works best if you can use it, but you said you had issues using Chrome.
Yeah, it was really weird. I don't know, ever since my computer crashed and I got everything working again, completely reboot everything, so it's like brand new, and now Google's like really, really slow. We got some other people in here. And Thomas, how you doing? Altric, how you doing? We're just still, this is kind of the pre-show, trying to get things working. My audio wasn't working. My mic wasn't working. David's headphones weren't working. We're trying a new system, so we're using Google Hangout. So anytime David coughs, it's going to switch to him.
Probably did then.
Yeah, and now if I'm going to start explaining something, I can just freeze on me, which we'll do that when we talk about photos and stuff like that. So how many more minutes we got, David?
Well, we can start really whenever. I mean, like I said, we're still, I think we were going to be going live at 5, but we'll give it, say, another 5 minutes, and then we'll start the show fully. The other thing, too, is, like I said, due to the fact of me coughing so much, Aaron may be doing a bit more talking than me because I think I'm probably going to lose my voice. But we've got a number of stories. There's some good ones that we can look at. The first one's talking about Sony, which we'll talk about soon. I'm not sure if it's real. You've got to be careful with April Fools, Aaron, what you believe today that's posted.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, so one of my friends texted me in the morning and said, "Oh, April Fools. What's the Afro guy?"
Jared Poland.
Yeah, I don't watch his videos, but apparently he did an April Fool's thing. So that reminded me earlier in the day, like, oh, that's true, it's April Fool's, so we got to make sure we don't get fooled by some of this stuff. So let's just speak the news as how we read it, but it might be April Fool's. I have no idea.
So how's your Fuji transition going? Let me talk about that.
Yeah. Oh man, what can I say about this? This is this is beautiful, man. I tell you what, I'm gonna save my yeah my whole idea behind this. So I'll probably make a whole like video on my YouTube channel about this because I think it's gonna go too in depth. But all I could say right now is I like it. When I first tried this out, I was in New York at the B&H Superstore the week it came out or was released to the stores or whatever. And when I picked it up, I loved it. It felt like just really, really good. So I kind of fell in love with it. I like the look. And this thing right here was one of the biggest things that I wanted in a camera. I know everybody wants the fully articulating screen, but when I'm doing photographs, that's all I need is that. And I already used it to yesterday, I guess, on a shot with my wife at this colorful neighborhood we found. And that's just makes a world of difference for the way I shoot. I like to shoot low and stuff. But everything else about it is amazing. And I'll go more into it. But just real quick, I absolutely love the camera. And it takes a little while before you know, little odds and ends that you might not like about it. But so far, so good.
So what are you going to do about the using two systems, though? You're going to find it's hard to use two systems?
It is very hard, and I never use two systems. One thing, though, I was using the Sony a7 III with the Sony a6000, and even having the same system with two different cameras is I hate that because if you want to roll with two lenses, I mean, you've talked about it before. That's why you got rid of the Panasonic GH5, I believe. And you're shooting with this, and then let's say you just want a wide lens over here, and I forget. Oh, where's the white balance? And it's all fumbly. So I never work with two systems. So I'll leave a video on my YouTube channel, Aaron J. Anderson, and we will probably discuss on which way I'm going to go with this. So it should be interesting.
Also said, do you have the V? Yes, I have. I've actually got a whole rig set up. Wait till you see this little beauty. So I've got this all set up now. I'm trying this out. From Small Rig sent me this stuff. So with the handles and everything on that I can just have a play around with. And I'm going to do a review of this coming up. But these handles are unbelievable, like beautiful. So I have got the Ninja V. In fact, I've been using it for most of my recordings.
I absolutely love that little rig you got there. I watched your video on it, and I was like, wow, that's like really, 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 really nice. So nice little setup you got there. Any other questions before we get started with the stories?
I think most are just saying greetings and hello.
Also fell for Fro's April Fool's video. I didn't see it, so I don't know.
I had a lot of people asking me about the Sony A8, and I knew that was an April Fool. I think that came out last year, actually.
That's too funny. Too funny. Well, hey, before we get started, we got to do my little coffee intro, and that is every week we do these shows. I drink coffee in a different place. So here we're going to be drinking coffee in Amsterdam. Yep. Love that place. Me and my wife travel all over the world, and we pick up mugs as we go. So we have tons of these. So every show we drink it from somewhere different. And the coffee is called Pilon, and I don't remember where it's from, but we're going to be drinking that today. And what we want to do is talk about, let me pour this real quick. We want to talk about a Facebook group that David started, and it's called, let me see if I can share my screen. This is going to be the first time I share a screen alive. So we are going to share that and share. Okay, so here we go. We got make sure you spell it just like you see it here. Photography. Oh, yeah, you can see my cursor. Photography and Videography School. This is a really great place for anybody with any camera of any sorts, of any brands. If you like photography and you like video, come on over here. Start following this page here because we really police this page so that you don't get a lot of like mean people in here just bashing people and thinking they're all that and everybody else is garbage and all that stuff. So everybody in here, we really take pride in getting rid of the idiots, basically. So come on over here. There's no bad questions or wrong questions or dumb questions. Ask your questions. Read all the... everybody's posting stuff on here. We post our videos from our YouTube channels over here. So if you kind of want to see what we're up to, at least for me, a lot of my photos will go right over to here or my Instagram. They a lot of people subscribers on my YouTube channel will miss a lot of my work because I know I can post little sayings or quotes or something on YouTube, but nobody ever usually sees those. But come on over here. You can be sure that you will be welcomed, and it's a really cool place to hang out. And share all your stuff. You can share your videos and all that stuff. The only thing David doesn't allow is going live through there. So anything else is good. Of course, it has to be tasteful and all that stuff. If not, we just delete it and get rid of you if you keep doing stuff like that. Anything to add, David? Did I miss anything?
No, it's just a positive site that, that we want people. Unfortunately, a lot of sites out there don't even allow you to share things like your YouTube videos, your actual home pages, your Instagram feeds. This will allow you to share any of that and ask for advice. You can share whatever you like. Like I said, you just can't go live to it. Apart from that, there's no restrictions apart from you have to be a decent, nice person, because if you say anything that's nasty, basically you're going to get one warning, and then the next time you're going to be out. Because I just don't want anyone to have any fear about asking, what they think is a silly questions. It shouldn't be that way, because you're just a beginner and you might have to ask that question. And I see that all the time in other channels where then what happens is someone will ask a question, then someone says, you should have just researched it or just looked at it online. I don't care about that. I want people to be treated as, decent human beings.
Yeah, exactly. I see that all the time on the other forums. If they ask a question like, "Oh, look in the manual" or something. I mean, of course, people should research, I guess, before they ask. But I mean, these places are a great place to go to do your research, because there's a lot of people. If I go to a Fuji X-T3 Facebook group and I'm new to Fuji, of course I'm going to ask some questions. That's what they should be there for. But people get all upset on some of those groups, and then I actually left one for a little while because it was just ridiculous. But then I went back because I was like, okay, maybe I'm being a little too harsh. But I came back and it still was kind of the same. But I'll stay there because I started learning from the good people, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so do you guys like the new studio setup? This is little bit different design that I had. If you saw my last studio, I was literally like cramped in like this, and I was actually inside of a closet without doors on it, which sounds kind of funny. And like right here was a wall, and so I put some graphics there because it would look really weird for me to be like this and then a wall. A lot of people didn't know that because of the graphic. But now, oh my gosh, I can spread out. I have more elbow room. I can present things better. Yeah, so looks pretty cool. I like the lighting setup. We're going to be doing a little more. As you can see, I've got some. I'm going to start putting some of my photos back there, kind of like an art studio-y type thing. So yeah, new studio.
Yeah, looks great.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go on to our first story.
All right, so let me put in there 1305.
So what I'm going to do with this is I am going to share this, and then I need to kind of freeze it there so we don't pop out of it. Let me share the screen. And hey, David, can you talk real quick?
Yep.
Okay, so it does switch to you. So I need to go present to everyone. Okay, say something again, David.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay,
4.
It's stuck there. So now we can see it without interrupting the view. So I'll start on this one here. This is Fujifilm finally revamps its horrible camera remote app. Now, the funny thing about camera remote apps, I think like every manufacturer is actually pretty bad. The only one that's like really, really, really good is Panasonic. That thing, you can click to focus. When you hit record, it records in whatever your camera settings are. It does although, of course, we know they don't do great in autofocus, but it will continually autofocus on you. Like there's just nothing. You can transfer JPEGs in RAW and the videos. I mean, I even think the 4K video, you could just do all that with the Panasonic. But Fujifilm, when I first got the camera, it was on the old version, and I wasn't too sad because it was crappy, because most of them are crappy. But what I did find that Sony actually was just a little bit better on the transfer speeds. And now here you got Fujifilm revamped it. So I only had it for like a couple weeks, and so I installed the new one, the 4.0, and I noticed maybe just a little bit faster, but other than that, I think people are hyping it up a little bit. I still think it's kind of just as bad as everybody else. You can't transfer RAW. You can't transfer video. Now, or no, here's a weird thing. And I noticed this when you have, okay, you don't have a flip out screen, so you're going to use your phone or iPad to see yourself, and then you focus on yourself. Well, you can't touch to focus, and then you want to record. Well, even if your camera, your X-T3 is in 1080 or 4K, once you hit record, it goes to 720p. Oh, excuse me, 720p, and it's like, okay, it's not. I'm not recording to the device. I'm recording in camera with my camera. I'm just using the phone as just a record to trigger it, but yet it drops to 720. So I still think it's a pretty rubbish app, just like all the rest. What do you think, David? I know you don't have this, but what do you think about apps in general?
Well, yeah, I was disappointed when I went to Sony after using the GH5 app, because that was one app where I was really incredibly impressed with how that whole thing worked. You know, touch to focus.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing app that was very polished. And then obviously I started using the Sony app, and that was sort of terrible compared to what the Panasonic gave us. But at least Sony now lets you transfer video and things over now. So the new update has been improved a bit, but you still can't do things like touch to focus and things like that, which is just crazy. I could do it in the original version, like my A7R2 that I'm using now. I can touch to focus, but then with the new updates of the A7 III and the A9, I can't. And it's really frustrating that, you know, you get held back in that way. But they have improved it, but it's still not fantastic. They really should learn from someone like Panasonic. I mean, look at Sony. They're a phone manufacturer that makes great interfaces. Surely they can produce great interfaces to work on a camera.
Yeah, exactly. Now you're not switching for some reason. I clicked on your little box and it's stuck on you, so that's something I kind of know if I don't want it to switch, but now I don't know how to do the auto switch.
Yeah, I think that happened to me last week when I was doing my test too. If I switched on the boxes...
Oh, I got it. Okay.
So what did you do to change it?
If I want you to stay up there, I click on your little box, and then there's like a white frame around it. And then if I want to click to me, I can click on my little box, and there's a white frame around it. If I want to get rid of all that, I just click on the little down arrow, and the white boxes disappeared, or the white frames, and now we're switching.
Oh, okay.
So... yeah, the apps aren't that good, and I was all excited when I saw the Fuji app coming in, like, ooh, because I'm not familiar with Fuji, but I just wasn't really fond of the app. And my main thing was, like, when I do like a lot of product photography for like jewelry and stuff, or web pages and all that, all I need is JPEG, because the picture is like that big. It's like a small little thing, so I just need JPEGs, and it's just so slow. It's like JPEG is like slow. The Sony was a lot quicker, so I just used the SD card reader for my iPad. So I have to take it out of the camera, of course, every time. But I just still find the app a little lackluster. So Panasonic's way better. I forgot you had Panasonic, even though I talked about it. It's so much better.
Yeah, their app is, like I said, the others should really be using that as a guide about how you create apps, because that's been good basically from, like I said, the one I had in the GH5, which is not a new app, was mind-blowing, and what you could do with that and how it would work. And, you know, I just don't understand why the others won't give that to us.
Yeah, even you would think they would. I'm having trouble with my voice too. Even having that they're not putting complete rotatable screens on these cameras, you'd think they would say, well, let's make the app like really good and really usable to make up for that, but they're not even doing that, so it's kind of weird. I'm not even looking at chat. Hey chat, how are you guys doing? Oh my gosh.
I was checking a couple of people there. Altric said he's shooting a baseball game with the new firmware with his A9, and it's mind-blowing. That's what I'm going to be using tomorrow to test it tomorrow, shooting around Melbourne. I'm really excited about that.
One thing really cool with the Fuji is it is Bluetooth, so all the information transfers over. And one thing that did kind of work pretty good is the auto transfer. So when you take a photo, it automatically transfers, which is kind of nice. But that's like if you don't need it right now because it's kind of slow. So if you just had like for a client, let's say, and they're sitting on a couch over there, and you're shooting a model or something over here, or a portrait or whatever, it can get transferred to them and they can kind of look at it. So that's kind of neat. And I think, does the new Sony do that, like the automatic transfer?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It does with that new transfer app part to it. I'm not sure if it works with the A7 III though. I'm may
Yeah, I
only be
don't.
the A9.
I think you're right because I couldn't figure that out if that's true, but I do
I
not
haven't
know.
I haven't even looked at those new apps yet. I haven't even opened them, so I'm not sure what the difference is. I know I heard somewhere that you could take the video now goes to, you can take that into your camera, but I believe from what I've read, it's way better than what it was. But that transfer app is meant to be incredible as well. But I think that only works with the A9. I think.
Yeah, and Trevo, you're saying that you didn't think the Sony app was that bad. Have you ever used the Panasonic app? Because that's where me and David are like referring to. Because you've got Panasonic app, which does everything you would ever think you'd want: focus, touch focus, record, but everything, raw photos, everything else.
Yeah.
But then you go to all the other ones, and they're like really bad in comparison. So yeah, if you're just like I said, the Sony app's better than the Fuji because it's faster transfers for my JPEGs, but Fuji doesn't let me do RAW either, so bummer. Okay,
Next story.
let's see here. I got to try to share this thing again. I click on that one and share. And then I got to present to everyone. Okay,
2113.
did you want to talk about this one first, David?
Yep. So 2113. So do you have to share to everyone? It should automatically share, Aaron. That's why I'm not sure if you have to do that.
No, when I put share, when I just click on share, it goes to everybody. But if I don't click on present, then it'll switch to you when you talk. And I don't want it to switch.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have to present to everyone so that people can read it while I'm scrolling, and it's not switching to you constantly.
Yeah. Otherwise, it would switch the second I talk. It would come back to me, and okay.
Everybody would be like, "I'm trying to read it or see the photo or something."
Well, I'm not. I mean, this may not be real. You just don't know, but because it is April the 21st for you guys, it's the 22nd here, obviously. April the 1st, I mean. But this is a new rumor that's going around that Sony are going to launch a 100 megapixel sensor. Also, it's going to be a 6K video camera as well, according to these rumors. But I've got a feeling that this probably is the potential A7R4. This is what I think this camera is, and I think that's where this is going to lead, because I think the next A7R4 potentially could be announced near the end of this year, and this might be the one that they decide that they're going to up the megapixels to that higher amount. And initially they were sort of talking about 60, 70 megapixels, but now it looks like it may be a 100 megapixel camera. There's two ways of looking at this. It might be an A7 IV, or they may even push this to be something like an A9R. But we just don't know yet at this stage what's going to happen. But it's an interesting rumor. I just thought I'd share it to say, boy, the megapixel race is certainly continuing on there. It's not something I'd probably want to buy, because there's no way I want to be manipulating 100 megapixel files. But you obviously could buy it, and then they'll probably have a lower version which may be 40 megapixels. That's the benefit of doing this. If you want to work that way, that's hopefully what they do. But you're getting up with medium format type file sizes with this type of camera. So it's incredible. It's meant to have better dynamic range than the A7 III. So overall, it's pretty exciting. But like I said, it's still only a rumor at this stage. But boy, if you're dealing with something that's 100 megapixel 6K camera, I read the comments and people are saying that they don't believe this could be a very good video camera due to the resolution. They're saying it's a bit high. Therefore, they think this is going to be more of a stills-based camera rather than a sort of a mixed sort of fusion camera, or hybrid camera that can shoot video and stills.
Exactly. I feel how do I click out of that? There we go. Yeah, I don't know if it's a rumor, but with what Sony said, they said that they're making a camera that's going to just, blow everybody's mind and their expectations in a camera, those type of words. So if that was what they're putting out, that would probably, be pretty crazy. However, just like you, for me, 100 megapixels is like way more than I need. If you guys could see this photo behind me there, that is a 9 megapixel photo. And if I'm doing a photo shoot for a magazine, you can see that that's like 9 megapixels is like 4 times the size of a cover of a magazine, and maybe 2 times the size of a full screen layout. So I could even easily use 9 megapixels for my type of work. There would be no reason for me to use 100 megapixels. And with 100 megapixels, you got to remember, you have to have the glass that resolves that. You got to be probably on a tripod to get all the resolution that you just spent your money on. Any little wind or vibration, you can blur the pixels, and then you're not really at that high megapixel. So I think that 100 megapixels is just like really, really crazy. It could be good for those really diehard people who like to do sceneries or product photography in controlled environments and blow those up on the sides of walls. Because I mean, you can imagine 100 megapixel on a 3-story building, how the resolution would look pretty nice. But for me, I just wouldn't touch it. And of course, what was that? The Leica, that new Leica has,
yes,
you can crop in, so you can have like one lens and crop, which would be really cool. But it's just way too much for me. And they are right about video. A lot of people were speculating when a new camera would come out that's supposed to be video centric, and it would be a higher megapixel. People would poo-poo the idea because I think 12 megapixels is all you need for a 4K video. This is 6K, so not much larger than that. So 100 megapixels, too much for me, but it could be cool for some people.
It's the storage, like I very rarely use my A7R II for that reason, because if I'm doing in a wedding, I find that 24 megapixel is the perfect size for what I want to use. And you can blow that up to an incredible size. Huge posters. I did one the other day and gave it to a client that was 62 inches in width, and that's big. And that was from a 24 megapixel sensor, and it still looked beautiful. I mean, I really look, unless you're doing like studio work, if you're doing, I suppose, landscape, some architecture, you may get the benefit from having these large megapixel sensors, especially skin retouching, stuff like that. But apart from that, you're better off really, I think, particularly if you're shooting just your normal portraits and events and things like that, to stick with a 24 megapixel sensor, which I think the 24 is the sweet spot.
Yep, I think 24 is as well. And Gene comes up with the good question here or comment that we already have pixel shifting on some of these cameras. So like my Panasonic G9, I can get 42 megapixels out of that. Of course, that's not 100 megapixels, but yeah, I think it would be just for very specific people who need that. Definitely not for me. Someone else said that they had somewhere, I can't remember who said that, but they were saying that they work with files that come out to 5 gigabytes. I can't find that now. Oh, Trevor, yeah. He says, I usually capture my Sony a7R II in uncompressed RAW, which I think is close to 85 megabytes. By the time I'm done editing, my Photoshop files is at least 5 to 8 gigabytes per image. That's a lot of storage.
What did you think too of Kitchenen's comment there? What's the best lens for travel? So with the Sony a7 III, 16 to 35 GM, f2.8, 85 1.8, or the Tamron 28 to 75 and the Sony 85 1.8. Well, you just did travel. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's different, of course, and everybody shoots things different. I shoot, or I don't like saying shoot people. I photograph people. I say that all the time. I photograph people, whether it's in video, short film, commercials, or photography. So for me, my lens choice, even when I travel, is going to be a little different because it's going to be more geared toward shooting portraits. So I don't use really wide-angled lenses, but I went to Europe twice last year, within a month apart for 1 month the first time, second month the next time. And the first one I took a couple primes. The second one I took the Tamron 28 to 75. And the 28-75, I like primes, but the Tamron 28 to 75 would probably be the best choice because if it's raining out, because you can't really do your shoot because you're on travel. If it's dusty, sandy, if you got to catch buses and taxis like we were, you can just fire off some cool shots when you see it. And so I would say that out of those ones that you said, I would just say the Tamron would be the best. When I did have the 28 millimeter of the Tamron, I did so dearly miss the 24 millimeter prime lens that I did on the trip before that. Not necessarily because I needed more to get in, but I just like the distortion that you get for the type of photography. Some of the photography that I do is get low or close up to something. It kind of looks cool. The Tamron was really cool too because a lot of times we went to Vienna and we had really beautiful coffees. So with that Tamron, when you're zoomed out or zoomed wide at 28, you can get so close to the item and it just looks really cool. So I would say the Tamron, in my opinion. What about you, David?
Yeah, I'd say that too. I love that macro ability with that lens. It's fantastic. I'd probably take the 28 to 75. And that would do for me. I wouldn't take the 85 1.8 if that was me. I'd take just something that was wider rather than, or say faster. I'd probably take the 35 1.4. That'd be the way I'd like to travel because I love that 1.4 as well. But I still love the 85, but I can get by now with the 75 mil on the Tamron if I'm dealing with portraits. It's actually quite nice at that focal length. But I'd say if you had to choose out of those two, definitely the Tamron and the 85 Sony would be the two to take.
Yeah, and just to clarify also what I did when I did have the Tamron, I did, just in case, I always take a 50 millimeter prime equivalent, no matter what crop sensor or full frame. 50 millimeter at like an f1.8 or faster, just for those low light situations that you might find yourself in. And usually a 50 millimeters are small, so they just kind of fit in my bag. I know you didn't mention that there, but I thought I'd add that in. Next story?
Yep.
Next story, let's do the Sherry thing. Here we go. Sharing the deal here. Okay, so this is really cool. I got to share something with you guys. Let's see if I can, oh yeah, my computer turned off. I don't know if I have that. I'll have to find it. David, do you want to talk about that real quick while I look for something?
Well, I just thought it's such a cute little sort of wedding images that this guy has produced here. What he's done, he's actually they've got this piano that obviously means a lot to the two of the couple, and he's taken this from his apartment that they've got, and he's wheeled this piano all the way up to the Eiffel Tower. And the interesting thing is that the photographer has captured the images going right the way through. Aaron will scroll through this in a minute so you can see some of the images. But it's just beautiful, and it's just captured great moments, and I'm sure they just adored it as a couple. Particularly how far this guy has taken this piano. It would have been pretty hard to wheel it over that distance, but he's obviously done it. And the results that you see at the end are just beautiful. And I think, good on him. It's a beautiful experience. It obviously meant an awful lot to the bride there. You can see he's covered her eyes, and then she'd see the piano there. And then, they've got some lovely shots with them playing and stuff like that with the Eiffel Tower in the background. But just something like thinking outside the box, something that's different. I would have loved to have done this type of shoot because I love things like this that are romantic and, something a little bit different that have meaning to the bride and groom. And it's just something I thought we could share.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. Look at this shot here. Now, this is so cool. I mean, hello, look how cool this is. And I love what the photographer says here. Down to the bottom, this is the photographer, Valentina, says, the idea, where does it say? The idea of, hold on. The idea hit me of putting the couple on top of a piano to capture a Lost in Paris moment on film. As the snow fell, I looked up in the sky and knew there was something special happening. It was a supernatural feeling, like as if God opened up the opportunity with perfect timing to remind the world that we can do better, that love is what this life is all about. And I believe that's the message behind this photo. So, I mean, the timing of snow, I love doing snow shots. I don't get to do them often here in PR. And the perfect timing of this guy to, look at this. He pushed this piano, let me go back. He pushed this all the way up. It looks like a beautiful day out, not even snowing. Then when they get there, it snows and they get that shot. Yoo-hoo! I love that. That's just like absolutely amazing. So I was trying to find some photos of me and my wife. We were just talking about me traveling, and one of those places we went to was Paris, and we actually hired a photographer to do our anniversary photos there, and they took beautiful photos of me and my wife. We were all dolled up and stuff in front of the Eiffel Tower. I had the folder ready to go, and then our power went out right before the show start. I didn't tell you that, David. Didn't want to scare you. and I lost the folder, and I can't find it in time. But yeah, we had some nice photos there. But man, if it would have snowed, that would have been amazing. What about chat?
Let's see what people are saying. Trevor said, I usually capture my Sony A7R II in uncompressed RAW, which I think is close to 85 megabytes.
Yeah, I
by
read
the
that.
time I'm editing in a Photoshop file. It ends up at least 5 to 8 gigabytes when he's edited, 100 megapixel.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I just don't. Like, I use compressed RAW because I find there's no difference for me that I've actually been able to actually see. Trev also said, I'm glad there are still parts of the world where you can do creative things photographically without being harassed by the authorities. That would be problematic in the US.
Yeah, I was in this article, actually, they actually talk about that, where this husband-to-be, I don't know his name, he actually asked the police there, hey, I want to surprise my fiance by pushing this piano from here to there. Is that okay? Do I need an escort? Is it against the law? And they just all smiled and thought it was the cutest thing, so they just allowed him. So yeah, I forget who said that. Trevor, I think, said that.
Yeah.
And that is pretty cool. Yeah, try to do that in New York, it's not going to happen.
Okay, so
next story. I'm still getting used to these controls, guys. Sorry about this.
Yeah, we'll get used to it soon.
I got to find the share button. It's not as fluent as my other one. Screen share and then present. Okay, so this was why affordable photography isn't devaluating your work. And this is interesting because if you read the article, it talks about how a lot of people, like this author of this article, he's a photographer, and he sees a lot of people in different forums and such talking about, everybody is, just saying, hey, I'll do your wedding for $10 or, a real cheap price. Basically, I'm exaggerating, but really low, undercutting everybody else, and that's why they're not getting work, I think, is what this article was pertaining to. And it's basically saying your work is your work, and this guy does his photography. It doesn't matter what his what everybody else is doing, because you're going to get paid for your work. Your value and all that stuff. And I'll let you talk here because you probably have a lot better things to say, David. But one thing for me, it also depends on where you are, because if you're in your demographic as a photographer, because if you look at, let's say, Charleston or something in the States, and how much wedding photographers on the average charge there, I cannot compete like that here in Puerto Rico. It just, nobody would hire me. So you got to look at demographic, but you should know your demographic and not undercut yourself. And just because someone else is doesn't mean that you have to, or that it's hurting your biz. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, it's a really interesting discussion, because there's two sides to looking at this as well. I have no issue at all with photographers that are just coming into the marketplace doing even work for free, because look, like all of us had to start from somewhere. So that's one thing that you've got to understand, that, I've got no issue with that at all, that somehow you've got to build a portfolio. You do have to sometimes work for free. And, and they're sort of the things that you have to do to build up your portfolio itself. So that's one issue. The area that gets harder is when when it starts to be undercutting what other photographers are doing, and that can hurt the industry. And that's one thing that you've got to be very careful of. And I've noticed even here that it's definitely getting harder to compete with a lot. And I'm a known wedding photographer here, but I can certainly see that now a lot of people are shooting on sort of shopping on cost. And then people are undercutting other people. And I'm lucky enough that I'm at the stage of my life where I'll say, well, I won't take it at that figure. But if you're a sort of not an established photographer, or your whole life is sort of depending, to earn money on this sort of stuff, it can really hurt your business, and it can actually force a lot of companies to go out of business. So you've got to be very, very careful that you are charging an amount that you're worth. And if everyone starts to undercut everyone, the whole industry basically would fall down, and then no one is going to be earning money. And I've seen that particularly here with baby photography, where when I did it initially, I didn't like it, but I did it initially, and I could charge $450 for an hour sitting, and there was no images involved. Where now, if there's an advert put in our local Bacchus Marsh residence page, I'm not joking, there's probably 60 people apply to do the stuff, and they're basically giving it away for nothing. Like, they'll do it for $80 and give the stuff, like all the images captured on the day. And I thought, oh my God, I'm so glad that I'm not in that marketplace anymore, because you're losing money. In fact, you're earning less than the average wage here per hour. By the time you do the shooting and do the editing and do everything else, you're working basically for what they call scab labor, which is for nothing. So it can really hurt you. So you've got to be careful. And I'm not certain that things are going to get better, because everyone does seem to be really undercutting everyone. Wedding industry was protected a little bit, but now it seems to be that that's now even been hit as well. I suppose people have moved now away from doing the babies and stuff, and they're now thinking, well, I'll try and go where the money is, which is where wedding photography is. So then they're offering, ridiculous wedding packages for $1,000, including unlimited hours, unlimited images and stuff like that, which if you work out the whole wedding process of your gear that you've bought, the insurance, the time involved to do the stuff, you can't compete. And, it really can damage the industry.
Well, yeah, you nailed it perfectly, because this guy says it's not harming him because he's kind of in the same state as you, where I guess it's not so he doesn't have to have those jobs or whatever. But yeah, if everybody does that, and that's why I said demographically, if you're in a demographic where everybody's doing that, then it gets really hard, because the scary part is when, like, the good photographers, someone mentioned here that it moves up and I can't ever find it. Creative photographers without being harassed. No, that's not it. I don't know where it went. But basically, when it's the photographers that do amazing work start going low, then you start worrying, because now they're just as good as you. Maybe they're even better, or even if you're on the same level, but they're charging that. Why would anybody go with you? If they're looking at your portfolio and them, they look the same, they're going to go with the cheaper person. That's my experience. And it is really, really difficult. And like you said, all these other smaller genre of photography has happened to, and then they all jump into the wedding thing, and now you got all these people trying to lower the market. And that's not just in wedding photography. That's like everything. Me and my wife own several businesses of different products and stuff like that. And once people start, lowering the price, like in the malls or something, and it's, why would they buy your more expensive one? It's the same. So yeah, I see that happening to photography, unfortunately. So I think you have to find a genre that not a lot of people can do, which can be hard. But the wedding photography, I just don't know. What do you think it's gonna happen, David? It really depends on where you live. Huh?
And also, like, a lot of people are saying the economies of most nations are struggling as well. So, that can be an issue as well. But I also wonder sometimes that the quality that people accept has dropped compared to what it used to be. Like, I see it all the time on Facebook that, you get, I don't mean to be derogatory, but you hear the mum with cameras,
Uncle
and
Bob?
they'll post an image, and then everyone's on there, oh my God, that's the most amazing image. And I'm looking at it going, am I looking at the same image you're looking at? Like,
that's too funny. I do the same thing.
It's just incredible. And then I see some wedding images, and I've discussed this before, where I get a number of brides during the year that contact me asking me to fix up the images from another photographer that shot their wedding because they didn't pay enough and he was basically crap. And I don't do them. I refuse to do that because it's not my work. But I see that more and more now. And I want people to hire me based on my work. and what I produce, and I very rarely alter on price. I did one the other day where I went down in price because they only wanted me for 4 hours. So I actually dropped my price by 50% because it's a winter wedding and I know I'm not going to get a booking. So I actually took, 50% off, and that I was fine to do that because I knew it was only going to be 4 hour shot. There's no editing involved. It's just basically do a quick edit and then release those images on disk for 4 hours. So that's the only time I ever tend to fluctuate from my normal pricing. But it just frustrates me sometimes that people will shop on price for their most special day. They'll pay an awful lot for their reception, which is over in one evening, and then they think the photography or whatever is like this side issue that they're going to try and save the money on. And that's the area where they try and save on, and that's the area where really they should be trying to spend money. For instance, when I got married, we actually got married in my wife's parents' house, and we had a reception in the back garden because we didn't want to waste the money. We wanted them to give us money towards buying a house. So we saved the money on that, but we didn't skimp on the photography. I actually hired a high-end photographer to shoot my images of the wedding because that was important to me at the time. And I still look at those images and think, boy, thank you that I did do that, because the images are still beautiful even today because I paid for decent images.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people, I did exactly the same thing as you. You'll see, like, yeah, you don't want to be mean to other photographers, but you'll see photographs that are just really bad. I mean, just everything about it, it looks cheesy. Just everything's off, as we know, as photographers, we know that's a bad photo, and yet everybody will love it. And this person keeps getting jobs and working everywhere. It's because I think a lot of people are so used to seeing so many photos today with all this cell phones and everything, that I think people's expectations of photography is what they're seeing all over Facebook and Instagram with just cell phones, because everybody's a photographer now, everybody's got a photo. So they're taking all these crappy photos. So when you just see something that looks a little better, a little composition, then it's like, wow, that's amazing, because usually they're all like twisted and weird, like, hey, and all this stuff, and all of a sudden you see something that looks a little more even and straight. Even though it's a bad photograph, it looks better than all the other photos that they're flooded with every day. So I think that might be why. And then of course that photographer probably charges really less, so he keeps getting work.
But that, like I said, that's not the type of work that I certainly want to be in. The other thing too I've found, which is really interesting, is the less when I started off and you originally giving sort of some cheaper weddings just to get some work up, they were always the weddings that I had the most trouble with compared to weddings where it's more high-ended. I've found that usually the dearer the package is, and it's really weird, but the dearer the package is and the more they're willing to pay, they obviously appreciate what they're getting. They usually have less issues and they just love your work. I just noticed Tim said, interesting to see a local story saying on average cost of wedding in Australia was 65,000. And yeah, it's getting up there now that, the average wedding is getting up to sort of that figure now in Australia of around 65K. And if you're sort of a wedding photographer dealing with, $4,000 to $6,000 per average on a wedding, that's a small amount compared to what they're charging for that wedding as a whole. But yeah, I don't know. And, there seems to be a lot of the spray and pray type shooters out there doing weddings now that'll give 10,000 images and, every single one looks the same. They've got no control. They just basically press the shutter and just keep shooting away like crazy. And then I'll get brides that will ask me, well, how come you're only giving me 800 images? I said, well, there's a difference between getting 800 quality images than there was with, getting 5,000 images where they all look the same. I mean, film days, what did we get? You used to get, say, if you were lucky, 50 images, 60 images. Exactly.
Yep. Everything you said is absolutely true. Now, before we go on to the next one, I just wanted to share the thing I was looking for. Let me share my screen. This is, I don't think this is the best photo that we have, but that's just a quick photo that we found of me and my wife there at the Eiffel Tower. So I just had to show it because
it's lovely.
We were looking for it. Thanks. Okay, so Next is we're going to show a photo. Well, I didn't say this in the beginning of the show, but we call this behind the photo because me and David I show one of my photos and I tell you how I got it behind the scenes, and he'll show one of his and do the same. So we will go into that. Let me see if I can share that again with my photo. And
what's the time? 49.
let's see if I click here. Okay, so this photo was in, what's it called? Oh my gosh, the name of this place in New York. Honey, if you're watching, let me know. Text me the name of this place. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's pretty popular, isn't it, that
Yeah,
shot?
I can't even remember the street of this area. Someone in the chat might know. But anyways, so a long time ago, we walked down the street, and I said, oh man, we got to come back and do a photo shoot here. And so we did, like years later. And the way I got this shot was...
Aaron, just to interrupt for a second.
Yeah.
Can you still see yourself live on YouTube? Mine came up with an error.
Let me see. It's called Dumbo, actually, by the way, guys, the area. Let me see if... I can't even see my YouTube. I don't even have my YouTube here anymore.
I think it just must be me, actually, I think.
I
Must be okay. I think it's just me.
I hope so. Let's go to the... Here we go. It's called Dumbo in New York, Dumbo. That's the area, and I forget the exact name of the street. But what we did, this was a very difficult shot, by the way. It might not look like it, but the problem was there was constant traffic coming. It's a one-way street, and the traffic is coming from behind my wife toward me, and it's just constant, like cars. I mean, every once in a while, we'd only get just a few seconds to shoot this. And so what I did was, I guess I'll stick on here. It's kind of hard to show this, David, without using my hands to show people.
You can see the mouse. You can see the mouse, though.
Okay, so, oh yeah, there it is. So, the cars would come up through here. So what we had to do is first, I put whatever telephoto lens I thought would work out, and then I walked up and down the street to make sure that one of the pylons here of the bridge would be, the size I want with the compression and all that stuff. Once I knew what remember, cars are coming, so we don't have time to stand here and do that. So while my wife is off on the sidewalk to the left, I'm getting the lens ready and the camera ready. And so I found out what lens I wanted. I think this was an 85 millimeter. And then I got the ambient exposure, and I took a photo, made sure the ambient was correct. And then on the left here, we just practiced the pose. So I told her how to pose, and I said more this way, that way, this foot that way, look this way, look that way. Did the whole pose thing. Once we got the pose right, and I had all the camera settings right, then all I had to do, and I didn't have room to put a flash stand, so I had to hold the flash, which I just hate doing, and because I had to hold it like over my head in an awkward position so it's not direct flash type of thing. And I wanted the light to come to the right, actually, because there was already reflection coming from the left. And so what we did was we ran out there and I took a test shot to find out what my exposure of the light output would be. Once we got all that, and more cars came, Once we had that moment, we already knew exactly what to do, right where to stand, the bricks that she's standing on, she knew everything. And like, okay, there's no cars, let's go. So we ran out there and we just took the shot. So this was actually maybe just a few shots I took to get this. All the other shots had a car behind there, and I just didn't want a car in there. Unfortunately, there's also this ugly construction going on when we were there, but I guess that's part of the city. And that's how we got the shot, and it doesn't look like a difficult shot, but being the fact that, let me freeze on me, being the fact that the cars were constantly coming, I had to hold the flash like this and hold the camera like this. So it was very awkward to do. But one suggestion would be, there were a couple girls off to the right. I don't know if they were just watching us, like, oh, hey, look, or they wanted a photo there. I can't remember, but I should have asked them, hey, do you guys want to help out and hold the flash for me? And then I could take some photos of you guys too for helping us out. That would have probably been so much easier. That way I would tell them where to stand, where my wife to stand, where I'm going to stand. Once the cars go by, we just go back and I could take off a lot more shots and angles, because holding the flash like this was too hard. So that's my behind the photo. David, your turn.
All right, so let me see if I can share. Let me go here, share screen, active window. Okay, so has it come up, Aaron?
Yes.
All right, so let me grab. So this was one I recently just did in a local location in Geelong, which is just not far from where I live, actually. The power of this was I wanted to try and use the continuous light here. That's the ability that using the B1 has given me, the Profoto B1, because it gives me that ability to be able to match the conditions or the color of the evening that was there, because it was in the evening just as the sun went down. So you're getting that lovely, sort of reddish sky sort of coming across. So I had to try and balance for that. So all I did, I had Kerry standing off to, I think she was over this side, over here, just out of camera with the B1. She was just holding it bare, actually. There wasn't a stand involved. And all we did was I used my iPhone because I can match it from the iPhone. That's one of the benefits of doing this. I can stand there, open the iPhone app, and then I can control the color intensity of the light from my iPhone to match. So all I did was I matched the ambient temperature in lighting and also in color, just from that strobe. So or just from that continuous light. So it made it very easy to manipulate it because I could see what I was actually going to get rather than using, say, a flash with a gel on it, and then you've got to try and work out what that may affect then the balance in the background and things like that. So it makes it very, very easy when you're trying to get these sort of romantic shots. It was 1/25th of a second f2.8. It was the Tamron 28-75 lens, and all I did, I asked them just to cuddle. You'll notice too that I am getting them to hold their hands around the waist. I do like that pose with brides, particularly because you get that nice triangle sort of shape in Nicole's arm, and it gives that lovely romantic sort of look together, and she's grabbing his hand as well, which gives that connection as well. Kerry is always very fussy about making sure that the dress is perfectly placed. That's one great thing about having an amazing assistant.
Yes.
That can do that. But overall, just love it. I gave them their photos just the other day, in fact, and the venue particularly, there was one I posted recently. I think I even showed it, Aaron, in ours, where they were in a tower at the top, wants to use some of this in their images in their promotional work. So, yeah, that's just that.
Very, very nice. And yeah, I love that shot. And continuous light, yeah, I don't use it much. I mean, coming from video, I use it all the time, and I love to use that, but I just haven't used it much in photography, only because most of the situations I'm in, it's too bright outside or something, and the LED lights aren't LED lights aren't bright enough. And I forgot to say my settings, and it was actually the shot that I did was it was on the Panasonic G9 with the Olympus 25mm f1.2 Pro lens. So full frame equivalent would have been a 50mm at f1.2. Whatever the math is on that 2 times crop. And then it was at 3200th of a second, ISO 200, which is the base ISO of the Panasonic G9.
Beautiful.
I had a question for you for your shot, and I don't remember now. Oh, yeah, I don't know how some of these photographers work without an assistant, because my wife is an amazing assistant. I mean... She so many people when we do weddings, a lot of people come to her because they think she's the wedding get. What's that person called? The wedding planner, yeah, because she's just so like on it and everything else, and she's like your wife. She looks at the dress. Sometimes I'll be all excited and all trying to get everything right, and then the dress is folded over. My wife sees it and fixes it. So yeah, amazing.
It's also amazing having a female assistant because they can do things that you just wouldn't do. Like sometimes you got to be careful how you touch and things like that. Whereas Kerry will be always fussing over them. Even if they have a little bit of their bra showing or whatever, she can tuck them in.
Yes.
All things like that, where even helping them get changed and stuff, and they just love Kerry. I even post behind the scenes on Facebook of Kerry assisting, because I always take a photo of it, the things that she does sort of in the background, and like she's also my second shooter, so that's a great thing as well. So it's great to have that partnership, which is so fantastic, and I do love that part of it. It's great.
Yep, I feel exactly the same. And everything you said is the same. A lot of times too, my wife will actually be helping out more than a lot of the people there, and she'll actually even help the bride get the dress on and stuff like that, and because she knows what kind of photo we're going to be doing. So yep, she can do all that stuff, where if you have two males you can't. So yeah, big plus. And then being, of course, our wives, we have we're just on the same page all the time, so
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
I mean, tomorrow's shoot I've got to do on my own because Kerry obviously works full time. So I've got to do tomorrow's shoot, everything on my own. So yeah, I noticed that particularly when I'm doing that type of thing, when I've got to try and work at lighting and, do everything else sort of on my own. And it's tough.
It is. A couple times my wife couldn't make it to some of my photo shoots naturally. And yeah, man, it's just once you have that and then you don't have it, it's like, oh, this is a bummer. So they're very helpful. Okay, I think that's it, David. Did we miss something? Is it questions and answer time?
Well, I'm just saying, because there's not many questions that we really need to answer. I think we've answered everything as we've gone along. So
yeah, I think
we're pretty well up there for today's show. So I think it's gone pretty well. Like I said, we're still learning, guys, with how this works, but I think the system's going to work better than what we were doing before, because Skype was causing all sorts of issues. I think it was my side due to the fact I think the Apple side had been updated, and it caused issues with that. Hey, David, are you able to change your aperture and shutter speed when you're recording to the Ninja V? I'm having a problem where I can't change the shutter and aperture with the dials. Yes, I can. Yeah, I can change all of that stuff. I don't know why you're having that sort of issue with the Ninja also. Yeah, I'm having none of those. It works fine, actually. Really enjoying using it. It's a fan. I normally don't like using monitors to do stuff, but I'm finding particularly to use the waveforms on that is just so good, the way that it works. And the other thing that the major saving for me with the Ninja V is the fact that it's already transcoded. So when I take it into any video editor, there's no transcoding that has to be done, and it's so much faster, particularly if you're dealing with 4K footage. It works instantly. The second you put it in, you can scroll through, scrub, whatever you want to do, and there's no slowdown, and you don't have to use proxies and things like that, which really makes a big difference for me. So I'm really enjoying using it. But yeah.
Yep, that's good. Like I always tell you, I never like using a monitor. If I got a small enough monitor and I had maybe the HDMI lock, I think that was my main thing. Is I never really, a couple times I had those HDMI locks, but most of the time I didn't have those, and I think that's the main iffy thing for me. But if I had a lock on it, I might use it a little more. But I'm just such a minimalist gear person that I don't know if I would use it. But I want to thank everybody for stopping by. Please give us a thumbs up before we close this out. We forgot to say that. Also,
yes, please
subscribe to my channel and go over to David's and subscribe to his channel, because this show, although it's been sketchy for the last couple of weeks with all these issues, I show it live on my channel, then the next week, next Tuesday, he shows it on his, and we go back and forth like that. So definitely go subscribe to him as well, and let us know not necessarily in the live chat, because we're going to leave here in a second, but in the link in the description of this video, let us know if you like this hangout type situation. We can't do all the cool switching and graphics like we were with the OBS type live setup, but for me, and I think David might feel the same, this is so much easier because I'm kind of like hands-free here. I don't have to switch back and forth. Only when we're sharing something, all I have to do is click on his little box and he's like frozen there. And so I think I like it this way better. I think it's going to flow better, minus those little hiccups we had in the beginning. So let us all know if you guys like that, and thank you so much for coming by. Please subscribe, leave some comments, give us some thumbs up. And David, if you want to take us out with anything, last words?
No, that's about it for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week on my channel to continue this. I'm really loving this whole process, and I think, like I said, over a period of time, that this is just going to grow and grow and grow. So it's thank you for everyone that's on the ground floor, basically with us, joining from the beginning. We really appreciate your support, guys. And like Aaron said, please give us a thumbs up, because it does mean other people will notice what's going on there, because, neither of us are sponsored. We're just doing this for the love of what we do. So yeah, please let us know how you go. Tim said handouts seem smoother.
Yeah, see, I think the Hangouts do seem smoother, at least from my point of view, because it's all like integrated into one thing. We're not using OBS, we're not using Skype, and and so forth, like my dog's making sounds. And so I think it's a lot more smoother. So thanks, guys. Love to have you
just
here.
said too, we care about the content, not the frills and thrills. Yeah, and thanks for saying that, Photomia.
Yeah, that's true. If your content's good, it doesn't matter. But sometimes the content can be bad and the quality can be bad, and that's a no-no. So we're going to try to keep the content always coming. And also, I want to improve the quality of this the set that I got going on. Probably change the camera out here shortly to something a little better. But anyways, thanks, guys. David, thanks so much.
Catch you next week, everyone.
Okay, bye.